Grace and peace to you. Yesterday in my sermon, we talked a little bit about the way that prayer is able to transform us. And I wanted to pick up on that today and share a little more with some stories and thoughts that I didn't have time to squeeze into my sermon yesterday. But I want to think a little bit specifically about praying for our enemies, because I think, if I'm being honest, often when I'm praying for my enemies, what I'm really praying for is that they will stop being such evil meanie pantses and will be better, right? That I'm praying that they see the light of day and that they improve and that they become less enemy-like. But I'm not really sure that that's how prayer is supposed to function or even does function. I don't know that prayer brings about transformation in others, but I do know that prayer brings about transformation in ourselves, that in praying for my enemies, I am the one who is transformed, which is what we see in the parable, right? That the unjust judge doesn't become more just because of the woman's persistence, right? He doesn't say, oh, I've been transformed, now I'm a good judge. He just does what she wants because he's tired and annoyed. But the woman, through her persistence, is the one who's able to maintain a posture of yearning and seeking and pleading for justice. I was at a conference recently where Trip Fuller talked about being a youth director 10 or 15 years ago, and his youth group decided to take on the practice of praying for their enemies, to intentionally, every time they gathered, every day, be in prayer for their enemies. And this being early 2000s, the enemy they specifically selected to pray for was Osama bin Laden. And so every day they would say prayers for Osama bin Laden. Every time they gathered as a youth group, they would pray for Osama bin Laden, and they did this day after day for months and months and months, until eventually it got to be Youth Sunday in the following spring. And one of the kids had decided that they'd bring in a cardboard cutout of Osama bin Laden to have there in their worship space with them. Because through the praying for him, they had been transformed. I don't know that anything different happened in Osama bin Laden's life in that 9 or so months, I couldn't say. But for them, the way that they understood how we relate to one another, and the way they understood the way that God is, and the way that God calls children precious, and the way that God puts God's image into all people, they were transformed by this habit of prayer, to the extent that for Youth Sunday, they brought, as much as they could, Osama bin Laden into their worship space to worship side by side with them. Needless to say, a lot of people in the congregation probably reacted in ways that you or I might be thinking right now at the idea of worshiping with this man. But I think that's a testament to the transformative power of prayer and what it can do in us, which is pretty profound things. And so I don't know that I have a point with all that today, except to say that I do think that this posture of prayer that the woman in the story is the example of, I think that it has deep and profound ability to shape us. And imagine, like this youth group that I've talked about, what ways can we be transformed through this intentional posture of prayer? So, food for thought today. Remember that you are loved, and God's peace be with you.